Something that's been eating me up for a while when it comes to watching. I used to be so good at it, or maybe it is that I got too good at it in a way. But now the thought of watching provokes a real and horrifying nausea in me. In 2022 and then again in 2023, I had developed the habit of trying to watch on average one movie per day. Indeed, in 2023, I surpassed this goal. I developed a rhythm and gotten quite good at knowing how long 2 hours was. I would wake up early before 9 a.m. classes so I could get a movie in before I started my day. And then I don't know what happened, but on account of some kind of burnout, the development of a peculiar neuroses is more likely. And I've now lost the ability to do this almost at all. And it makes me so sad, and it makes me cry. My possession of unwatchability rails against me. And I waver all the time about, is this even real? Why can't I watch things anymore? Is it just because I tell myself I can't? Because it's not a physiological deficiency. If you Clockwork Orange me, I can probably even get through however many hours of Kobayashi's The Human Condition. Certainly, back when I could watch things, I purchased a copy of the film intending to get around to watching it. But now it sits on a shelf in my home, and thinking about this for too long really makes my head reel with anger and discontent, and some third or fourth thing I haven't the knowingness to name. Regardless, it is that I want to believe it won't be like this forever. Coming into the new year, 2026, I texted my friends, what will break first, the cycle or my body? And it was at that time that I intended to force myself to go to screenings every week until I got over my lame self-inflicted condition, self-fulfilling prophecy more like it. And I succeeded for a week. But then I just ended up bedridden again, ended up crying again, ended up doubled over in shame and fear and so much sadness again. I don't know what it is, I just wish things were different. I wonder sometimes if part of it's to do with my possession of knowledge. In the years when I was watching movies every day, it was also that I was looking for things to watch every day. Through this exchange, it became that I knew brief amounts about many, many things. I had all these images of things I hadn't seen cluttering up my head. And I think part of it is my compulsion to take notes while watching things. And I can avail myself, I know I'm able to maintain a continuous analysis of all these images that are being shown and how they compare to those that came before. And how it is they came to be through montage / editing or Tarkovsky movement through time. And I think it is that I can right now allow myself to be surrendered to a text. To watch something and truly watch it, as Hatsumi maybe wants us to do for Ozu, is such a terribly laborious task, and I think I get too in my head about the knowledge of all that it takes. Part of this is born about by the discontent arisen at seeing other people watch things while colored with their own sheeting veils of prejudice. I don't pretend I can immunize myself from this mode of engagement, don't get me wrong, but it gets in my head sometimes, the knowledge of how people can watch something and refuse at all to take it on its terms, the terms that it's presenting itself with. Whenever I lay it out in these terms, though, it seems a bit silly. I can't help but laugh a little bit. What an odd thing to be felled by. The idea that I'll have to sit down and watch something I expect myself to like. Silly in part because I know just how much I still can watch things. If push comes to shove, and especially if a certain level of company is provided, I can watch things no problem. What an odd thing to live in a body whose resistance varies so greatly by day and by surrounding disposition. Well, anyways, I've waffled here in the prelude about myself long enough. I tried to find an essay from the volume, which I could graft these things I wanted to say about my experience of unwatchability onto, but I couldn't at a glance find anything. Absent this, I will attend to Stefano Harney and Fred Moten's The Unwatchable and The Unwatchable. Among other reasons, I am prompted to think with this piece in how it is figuring the unwatchabilities inscribed in the relationalities and constructions of surveillance. This is a topic I've found myself perennially interested in, and in an observable way since at least the summer of 2024. According to Harney and Moten, one of the issues with watching security and surveillance is that this kind of watching is charged with impermanence. It's not that we don't want to. It's also that even if we did, they're bound to disappear. They write here in quite dense language, so let me see if I can reconstruct what I understand this quote to mean, to be able to mean. We cannot watch security and surveillance because they are always happening. This is part of it. They are always happening, and so our watch will disappear while theirs remains. The second part is that while we watch, the securing watch changes. We only catch the tail end of that it was watching some whatever object, some whatever subject. It is the turning around and seeing someone suddenly put their phone away from having been faced in your direction. I will now bring in an example of surveillance and unwatching to hopefully catalyze some of the figurations embedded in Harney and Moten's piece. I've recently, in the past week, from when I wrote this, been caught in this kind of unwatchability and thinking about a scene/setting from the newly released Poppy Playtime Chapter 5, Broken Things. This is the latest installment in a kids' horror franchise about exploring the depopulated facilities of an evil company that turns kids into toys in the pursuit of immortality, or something like that. This is a series of puzzle games, and in so being, its gameplay is contingent on the legibility of its level design, being often lacking. It succeeds or fails in part by how easily players are able to look at what they are given and understand what they need to do, which they so often aren't. But also, importantly, it is that the most common way people interact with or encounter this game is through watching other people play it. It comes in this way from a long tradition of indie horror games whose main channels of circulation are in the media ecologies of Let's Play YouTubers and streamers. Yes, and so in this predisposition to being at this crossroads of watchability, it is that the newest installment of the series has a scene where the player walks through an area where workers ran experiments and observations on the kids they kept in the facilities. The player first comes to this setting from the side of the observer. They walk down a hallway with bland white walls on one side and giant windows that look into playrooms on the other. This is figure 1. At the end of the hallway is a door to enter into one of the playrooms, all of which are connected to one another. Upon entering, though, the space looks much different from how it did before. The fourth wall from which the player previously was able to see into the rooms from, figure 2, is now opaque and decorated with the same playroom wallpaper aesthetic that decorates the other 3. The implication here becomes that this is a setting for surveillance, a place for kids to play and be observed by researchers and so forth. However, there are more unwatchabilities rolling underneath what I've just laid out here. It is not just that the kid is unable to watch the researcher watching them, but also that we as the player or as the user watching the player are unable to watch either the kid or the researcher. We arrive here after any kind of experimentation or research or otherwise observation has long since ceased. There's a fundamental gulf going on. All that's left is evidence of a watching. But the game goes still further. For one of the new features in this installment is a recurring gameplay segment that lets players enter back into the memory of a child/toy from the past, back when the surveillance was taking place. This is figure 4. But still the game cannot produce the body, so to speak. There is no face to the watching, only a pretense that this is a place where watching could occur. To be more precise, though, there is a face that's watching us, but it's a recorded face projected onto a screen. Insofar as surveillance watching is watchable, it is in the capacity of being instructional. But again, it is that it is recorded, and that it is so distorted so as to make its presence known. It is once again bound to disappear. Indeed, this screen facilitates a timed minigame of sorting like-shaped blocks into like-shaped holes. This is the Miss Gracie segment of these. I mean, all of them are Miss Gracie, but she's the one on the screen instructing us. But the screen can be telling too in another way. In its refusal to produce a body proper, it's a refusal, thus also to be concomitant with the watched. As Harney and Moten write, to watch us is to fall into politics. To watch with us is to fall outside of politics with us. It is to fall into our arms. The second memory sequence has the player still watched gain the transplanted position of watcher. The screen watcher tells the player that they must secure order and put the quote-unquote lazy bones back in their place. This is figure 6. This is precisely a falling into and out of our arms. Arms being a key word here, as it is that the player character in these memory sequences is Huggy Wuggy. A fact indicated by the constant visibility of our felt hands and fuzzy fur arms that stretch out almost forever when we go to pick things up, figure 7. But the security can only happen in the past, or there's a tension between how it comes up when the player/viewer gets there. The extent of this company's operations, their security, their surveillance are unwatchable because this is a game with a profit motive informing its production, and so all it can produce is traces of traces. This extends to the media mix surrounding the game, such as the promotional VHS-style videos put out to promote the game before it came out. Again, I will turn to images of people watching these texts for my analysis. The 3 VHS-style videos released to promote Chapter 5 follow 2 employees who were previously involved in watching the kids/toys be experimented on. This is figure 8. The first video depicts the process of the pair watching the conversion experiments take place. The extent of their watching is obscured, of course, as editing elides all but the eventful or strikingly imagistic moments. At the very least, this provides evidence that there were people who watched, and, what's more, it aligns the watchers with the player's initial positionality with regard to this room. See repetition of Blue Wardrobe from figure 1. More interesting, perhaps, is the second video of this series, which depicts the two reflecting on their complicit pasts after an event has shut down the facility for good. I couldn't stand by and watch it happen anymore, says Preston, one of the key players, viewers familiar with other media mixed material would know, in causing this shutdown event to happen. That is the Hour of Joy, if you care, or if you're knowing. For Preston, surveillance was watchable in that it was morally unstomachable, unwatchable. Importantly, though, it was unwatchable in that it was morally unstomachable. Importantly, though, it is that even as Preston verbally gestures at being motivated by the unwatchability of atrocity, in his actions to put an end to the perpetuation of said atrocity, it is that he too persists as unwatchable. His face is entirely blacked out. Figure 9. Indeed, he only becomes watchable after he gets caught by the newly instated security and turned into a toy himself at figure 10. Harney and Moten's piece, in the end, is about the unwatchability of blackness from outside blackness. There is a desire to watch, and therein somehow to possess blackness by anti-black and white-aligned forces. But these attempts, according to Harney and Moten, are impossible because they aren't watching. The only way to watch blackness is to be black. Quote, blackness is unwatchable because there's no way to watch it that ain't it. No way to watch it from the outside, which is to say, from its anti-black and worldly effects, politics, policy, legality. I mention this because it is important to Harney and Moten's argument, but also because I think it can be related to the crises of watching at the center of Poppy Playtime. While there are important differences in blackness and kidness, what the watching in Poppy Playtime is about, I understand them as both pertaining to marginalized and disempowered positionalities in a system of imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy, to sort of use a bell hooks turn of phrase. Patriarchy is a system about policing children at the end of the day, about objectifying them, turning them into toys. And so patriarchy is aligned with wanting to watch children, to secure children and surveil them. See the rhetoric around the so-called Kids Online Safety Act and other similar child security legislation happening in the West right now. And so I wonder strongly if this game can, intentionally or not, if that doesn't matter, have an argument that perhaps kidness too can be watched, because when adults watch kids, they do so to possess them. But they can never truly watch because they are not kids themselves. Indeed, it is that, once again, it was the kid/toy player character who had to be the one to take their fellow kids into their arms, only to then let them go into the, quote, bad toy box. The surveyors cannot do the same. I will close with one final sharp turn in direction. In Billy Woods and August Fanon's music video for Fun and Games featuring Fatboy Sharif, this argument of Harney and Moten about the unwatchability of blackness emerges as one of the key visual motifs. The video uses a repetition of fisheye lens-style camera shots where the camera is positioned directly next to a black face to be in such a way as to render the face largely illegible. But, of course, for that it is a black face. See figure 11. The image testifies to the partiality of surveillance. The image is unclear and its subjects are truncated. The image is saying, how much did you ever really think you would be able to see, to watch, even? That is, to see in an extended in time sort of way. With all of your cameras and security systems, what image of blackness is the camera over the 24/7 ATM ever really able to see? Parentheses, what image of blackness did it ever really want to see? Paranoia up to live in a society with cinema. Over the shoulder, behind the flag. Fisheye like an anime break. Surveillance. If so, they can't see you. The focus is where it needs to be. No power has ever wanted fidelity. How the image is made in absence of self-governance. I speak now, does it still have the wobbly sort of sound? Is it having that or not?